Welcome to the Leesburg Talk Podcast. My name is John Kelley. I'm the disciple-making minister here at Leesburg Christian Church.
And my name's John Welch, and I'm the lead minister here at Leesburg Christian Church.
That's right, man. And
That's right.
You are taking a 2-week hiatus from preaching.
That's right. You're welcome.
I don't know that anybody's excited about that necessarily. I am excited about the opportunity to preach, though, this coming week. That's been nice. Sammy did an awesome job this past week. Talking about the Good Shepherd. This week we're going to do something a little different with the podcast.
Okay.
A little something different. We're not going to discuss the sermon necessarily, but we're going to talk about something that's coming up here at Leesburg that's going to take on a rather large role in the church. And that's this word that you're going to hear going around called community groups. I guess it's not a word, it's 2 words.
2 words.
Yeah.
You meant syllables.
I was never a math guy, so I got to work on that a little bit. But for the last 7 years, or I should say the last 6 years before I came to Leesburg, I was in charge of a program at my last church where we created these small groups we called community groups. Had a very specific purpose to them, and we saw massive amounts of growth and engagement within our church because of it. And so when I came here, one of the things that you asked me to do was to kind of take what I've learned from that and adapt it to what will work here at Leesburg. Mm-hmm. And so for the last almost year, I've been doing a lot of watching and getting to know people and finding out kind of the heart of the church and seeing how groups would work here.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is there are a lot of people right now that are hungry to be in groups like this.
Yeah.
So John, let me ask you something. What do you think is something that is necessary for a church as it grows bigger?
You know, it's funny. As churches grow bigger, people desire to go smaller,
right,
and get in smaller groups, right? So it's just a funny paradox where the smaller church is, they want to get bigger, but when they get bigger, they miss the small church feel, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's neat. I think that's one of the driving points for community groups is the feeling of I don't really belong here. There's so many. I'm just a face in a sea of faces. Where's my spot? Where do I connect?
Right. I think it's real easy. I think you hit something big there when you talked about people become numbers. Mm-hmm. I think it's something as a church leader you have to be very careful of. That, and I think we actually talked about this yesterday in our staff meeting, the idea that we can't just give people things to do, and that's what we make the people about is, hey, here's your job.
Right.
That's not the church.
That's right.
Now, we all have things we do within the church, but we can't make people about what they do.
Yeah.
People are souls. Mm-hmm. People are very important to God.
Yeah.
You know, as Sammy talked about with the Good Shepherd, the Good Shepherd doesn't leave his flock hanging when evil comes.
That's right.
The hired hand does that. Mm-hmm. And we can't be like that as a church. One of the things that to me has always been important is this idea that we can't do this alone. Mm-hmm. I find it's nearly impossible to say I'm a Christian and then completely avoid the church.
Yeah.
I don't think personally it's possible.
I don't think scripturally it's possible.
I don't think. I was going to say
most important.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think scripturally it's possible. And honestly, why would you want to?
Yeah. The model that we see throughout the New Testament, well, Old Testament as well, but specifically looking at the New Testament church, we see that the people of God, the Christ followers, grouped together. You don't have any type of a man on an island type idea where it's just about me and God. No, it's about us and God. It's about the community of believers. It's about the body is the terminology that Paul uses to describe the church, the body of Christ. And just as our bodies have different parts, each person, part of the body has a different part and a different role. And so throughout the New Testament, throughout the book of Acts, we see the grouping of Christ followers, the continual meeting together and sharing life together, and then the encouragement throughout the Bible. For example, in Hebrews, I think 10 or so, It says, don't neglect meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but all the more gather together and spur one another on toward love and good deeds.
Well,
So,
I find it's nearly impossible to do anything by yourself. To do it well, weight loss. For years, I've tried to do weight loss, and I always have just been the solo act going after it.
mm-hmm.
You know how much easier it is when your wife's doing it with you?
Sure.
It really is. I mean, and it's richer because you get the opportunity to share, you know, what's happening. And when my wife hits a goal, she gets to celebrate, and I get to celebrate with her, and vice versa.
My wife has been on a clean eating journey for the past several months.
Have you enjoyed doing that with her?
Oh no, I'm not. No, and so she can tell you how hard it is to do it when your spouse is not doing that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But I think that's with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It really
Sure.
is. And to go back to what you were talking about with the early church, I want to kind of explain like the model for what I see community groups being.
Yeah. Please tell us that.
Because I think a lot of people are going to be, okay, what is a community group? First off, it's not a Bible study.
Right.
Those are different. Mm-hmm. Bible studies have one goal. You come, you study the Bible. That is the goal of a Bible study. Community group's a different goal. Mm-hmm. It's not that you won't study the Bible. It's just that's not the end goal of a community group.
So what is the end goal of a community group?
It's in the name. It's community. It's godly Christian community. And it's based on basically the church from Acts chapter 2, where they gathered together, they broke bread, and they practiced the apostles' teachings. We're literally going to take that and apply that to these groups. So people are going to get together, they're going to share a meal, and they're going to have a time to discuss what we learned on Sunday from our teachers. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think has been invaluable about these groups in the past with other churches that have done them, they're called sermon-based groups. The reason they succeed is because it takes what you learn on Sunday and it extends it throughout the week.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are probably noticing we're getting emails throughout the week that are having to do with what happened this past Sunday and what's going to happen the next Sunday. People are noticing that the Leesburg Talk podcast typically talks about the sermon on Sunday. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that. We want the sermon on Sunday to carry intrinsic value that's more than just something you hear on Sunday and 2 days later you forget it.
Yeah.
There's no point in preaching if it's something that's forgotten just a few days later.
Yeah, that's right.
And yet, I'm as guilty as anybody in the fact that I've done that. Mm-hmm. I've gone to a church service. I've heard the message. And a few days later, I'm not really thinking about it anymore because I've moved on to other things. I'm thinking about other things. What we're trying to do is take the conversation that was started on Sunday through the sermon and continue the conversation throughout the week.
Yeah.
And that's where these small groups are going to be so valuable because they're going to allow people to really have the ability to discuss because they've all heard the same thing. Mm-hmm. Even if they miss the sermon on Sunday, we're going to start posting that sermon on Mondays as part of the Leesburg Talk podcast for people who maybe aren't going to get on YouTube and watch a sermon, but they will listen to it while driving to work. Mm-hmm. They'll be able to listen to that sermon. And no matter who comes to your group, everybody's kind of on a level playing field. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's another thing it's fantastic for is for the person who's new to the church. Mm-hmm. They don't know anybody. They're trying to get in community. They're invited to a community group. They come and they've been there for Sunday's sermon, so they've heard what everybody else has heard. Now they have the ability to be part of the discussion, even with maybe less biblical knowledge than the other people in the group have, which I think is invaluable. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's important about these groups is that they're your whole family. A lot of times in the church, we like to segregate. Mm-hmm. Kids go here, women go here, men go here, teens go here. Community groups are built so that the whole family comes together. Now, you may not do the discussion time with the little ones because they're probably going to be interested for about 5 minutes and then you're all going to go crazy.
Yeah.
But when you have that meal together, and when you're having godly discussion and your kids are hearing it, the message you're relaying to your kids is that church is not a Sunday thing. And that's huge.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest errors of the American church over the last 200 years is that we've created Sunday church. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is church isn't on Sunday. A worship service is on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Church is our life. It's who we are. And so we've kind of changed what quote unquote church
Right.
is.
Yeah.
What this does, it shows our children, no. We are the church.
Mm-hmm.
And these things that we talk about on Sunday, we can talk about all week long.
And they matter.
And they matter, and they're a part of our lives. I think that alone is going to be huge for families in our church, because that's not natural for a lot of people.
Well, so let me throw some stuff at you real quick.
Absolutely.
So we're calling them community groups, and we might hear that and think, okay, it's just a time where we gather and have a Bible study together. But we're talking about far more than just even listening to or applying or asking questions and answers and conversation about the sermon. It's far more than that. Community, that's something that's really not practiced well in our world today.
Right.
Because we live in such a self-focused and individualistic society.
We insulate ourselves from others.
We're insulated. And so when we talk about community, what do you think about when you think about community groups and how those, like, how is that different from just going to church and going to a Bible study?
Well, let me give you examples from my last community group.
Please.
From the church I was in before I came here at Catalyst. When I was at Catalyst, I should say. We went to Kings Island together just to do it. We ate in each other's homes outside of our community group meetings. Every July 4th, our community group came to our house because you could sit in our driveway and watch the fireworks there in Nicholasville. Mm-hmm. Just this past Friday, I had done a week of camp. Yes, I did a week of camp with first and second graders at Camp Northward. Wow, you want to talk about energy? First and second graders have some energy, brother.
They got it.
And
you don't.
I don't have that energy. Yeah. I don't have it. But my daughter's best friend happens to be the daughter of someone who's in our community group there. And so when the week was over, I called their parents, or we asked their parents, do they want to come up? We're having a movie night in our community there in town.
In your subdivision.
In our subdivision. Yeah. And somebody got a projector out, put it out in their yard, invited the whole community to come watch. I think it was a Batman Lego movie, which is actually very funny. But we got invited to come watch that, so we invited them to come up. So I brought their daughter back to our house. She played with our kids. They came. We hung out for a few hours. Then we went and watched a movie together. And that was normal. Yeah. We've created not just friendships, but genuine family. Mm-hmm. And that is desperately needed in the church. Mm-hmm. John, you know this. If you just come on Sunday mornings, you have great acquaintances. Mm-hmm. But it is very hard to create deep friendships and relationships just showing up on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the biggest, I would say that's almost the biggest benefit of community groups, is that it gives you people. Yeah. I guess that's the best way to put it. It gives you people that are your people.
And so as a parent, for example, you know, everyone is teaching and training our children in our world, right? Our kids are picking up so much from so many people. So I'm surrounding my family with other like-minded people who are going to speak truth to my girls that they desperately need to hear, that they might not hear from me,
right?
But they could hear from someone else, you know. And oh yeah, well, so and so said, I've been telling you that for years, but now so and so says, okay, fine, great, I'll accept it, you know. So it surrounds our kids in a community where like-minded people are speaking the same vernacular, have the same beliefs, are pointing to Jesus, and so that's strong. But also as an individual, I was in a previous ministry. I had a guy come up one Sunday morning, and I'd recognized that when I saw him, it dawned on me that he hadn't been around for a couple of weeks. And I said, "Hey, man, we haven't seen you for a while. What's been going on?" And he was mad.
Yeah.
He says, "I've been in the hospital." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you okay? What's going on?" "I had a heart attack. And not one single person from this church came and visited me or called me or checked on me." Oh, boy. Wow. Yeah, that's rough. Hey, let me ask you, are you in a small group? Because I was overseeing the small groups of that church. Right. You in a small group? He says, well, no. I don't have time for that. All right. Did you call the church and say, "Hey, I'm in the hospital. I've had a heart attack"? He says, "No, I figured y'all would call hospitals and check." So yeah, HIPAA allows us to do that. You know?
Yeah, right.
Come on. Yeah, I said, so let me get this straight. You're not in a community with anybody. You're not a small group or You don't have close people here, so no one knew. And you didn't tell the church that you were in the hospital, so we didn't know. And now you're mad because we didn't just know. Well, I guess that's not fair. You're right, that's not fair, you know?
Yeah.
So the other aspect of a small group like this or a community group like this is you have people closely connected with you. So when the fecal matter hits the fan, I've got people who I can lean on, who love me, who care about me and my family, who can fill in the gaps and support us in times of need or crisis or whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just that, but who can make it so that we don't have to depend on the leaders of the church to always be the ones to do everything.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times somebody was in the hospital and we'd find out about it as ministers, but their community group had been there for days visiting with them and taking care of them, and they never once felt slighted by the church. Yeah. Nobody was ever upset at myself or Dave, our senior minister at the time. Nobody was mad at any of us because they were being visited. Yeah. What it does is it mobilizes the church to be the church. Mm-hmm. Another benefit that's not just for the person, but for the church in general. One of the things that happened at our church was we had a local drug rehab facility that was there called Revive. And they were asking churches, could we bring people to your morning service once a month? And it's going to be like 40 or 50 guys. Are you okay with us bringing those guys? And of course, my response was, yeah, absolutely bring him. He goes, okay. He goes, I knew you were going to say that. He goes, it's just we've had some churches that have said no. Yeah. And I could not, I was shocked by that. So without discussing with anybody, I just said, well, I'll tell you what, bring your guys early and we'll feed them breakfast. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, bring them half hour early. We'll have breakfast ready and we will feed those guys once a month when they come over. Mm-hmm. He goes, awesome. Cool. Yeah. So all I did was I communicated with our community groups and I said, could everybody take 1 month this year? 1 month. In other words, one breakfast. Mm-hmm. Nobody denied that. Nobody said no because they were working with their family to do ministry. Yeah. And so they would fix these breakfasts, sit down there and talk to these guys. And so these men who, quite honestly, they knew that when they go places, people are looking at them a little side-eyed because they know who they are. You know, they know I'm a drug addict and these people see me and that you know what's going through their heads. But when they would come to our church, they would come and have a breakfast and people would sit down and say, tell me your story, talk to me, tell me about you. Yeah. And it changed everything. Yeah. It was a game changer. And it wasn't the preacher, the associate minister, the youth minister doing that. It was people in the church doing ministry and being the church. Yeah. And so another kind of a cool thing that happens from these community groups is it mobilizes people to do ministry.
That's great.
One of the things that I think that we fail with in small group ministries in a lot of churches is they're just Bible studies. Mm-hmm. You come in, you do your talk, and then you go home. Community groups are different in the fact that if you come in and one of the people in your church has just had the worst week ever, they've lost a loved one, they've had to file for bankruptcy, they've lost a job, whatever those things are, don't do the study. Mm-hmm. Spend significant time in prayer with them. Mm-hmm. I remember we had a member of our group who literally just financially fell apart. Her husband succumbed to drug addiction and ran away. And she was not stuck with her kids, but she was left behind with the kids by herself and trying to make ends meet. And she had to file for bankruptcy and she was distraught. She came in tears. She was a wreck. And I just told everybody, guys, stop everything. Mm-hmm. We're not doing the lesson tonight. Let's just pray. And we prayed for an hour, John. Mm-hmm. And it was the most powerful community group I'd ever been a part of. And we never once opened our Bibles and talked about the lesson. Yeah. Sometimes that's what's needed. Yeah. There's also going to be times when you come in and everybody's just exhausted because life is tiring sometimes. Yeah, sure. And we would have nights where it's like, tonight, we're not doing any lesson. We're just going to hang out, just kind of pour into each other. Yeah. And that's the beauty of a community group versus like your typical Bible study. Yeah. And the thing is, we're not getting rid of Bible studies here. Right. So if you're somebody who's like, I've got to have a Bible study, those are still available. Yeah. That's not changing. Mm-hmm. But the purpose of this is build community, grow with people. And as you're growing with them, you're going to grow, they're going to grow, but you're also going to grow connected. It's not just about personal growth and getting closer to God. It's about building community and actually becoming the church like what we read about in Acts, where they were with each other all the time. They loved to be together. They sold their belongings to take care of each other when the need approached. I can't tell you how many people that when life got crazy, we fixed them meals. We gave them gift cards for groceries, whatever we could do to help them out. And we never once had to go to the church and say, hey, could we get money to do this?
Yeah.
We just took care of it because these were our people.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, when you boil it right down, that kind of community is so necessary in the church. And I'm going to tell you what, man, when you have that kind of community, you're never leaving the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're never going to leave the church.
Well, let me throw this to you.
Yeah.
I know somebody's listening to us talk about this and they're saying, hey, that sounds awesome. That sounds great. But I can't. See, I've got my men's group here, and I've got my wife has her women's group here, and then we've got baseball practice here, and I can't give another evening or another day to something like that.
Right.
What would you say to that individual? I know it's tough. I can say it if you want me to.
I know what I think.
Uh-huh.
I think this is more important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not downgrading Bible study. That's not downgrading these other things. But you just said two things in there that caught me, and that was my wife does this and I do this.
Yeah.
This next year, I have at least 2 nights a week that are going to be dedicated to church stuff. But my wife and my kids are going to be part of both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be doing a community group at my house in Georgetown, and my wife and I and my kids, we're going to be doing Trail Life and American Heritage Girls.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we can segregate ourselves so much that we really do pull families apart as opposed to putting them together.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that there's not a place for men's groups or women's groups.
Yeah, that's right.
But there has to be a place for the whole family.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kicker there. It's not negating the others. It's just emphasizing the importance of the family needs to be together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, my kids, they were upset when community group was canceled.
Mm.
They were upset when we took a break for Christmas or for summer.
They now have friends in those other families.
It's their community group too.
Yeah.
That just before we left, well, not even before we left, we were still here. Earlier this spring, 2 of the kids in Nicholasville had a birthday party, and we were invited to come down. And you know who the kids were and the people that were invited to the party? The community group.
Yeah. I would agree with you. If you've got to choose between, my men's study and my wife's women's study and whatever else, I'd say scrap both those and do something together. Because here's the other benefit: guys get together and we can have studies and talks and good. Women can do that, but sometimes it can be hard to have spiritual conversations with your spouse.
Right.
So this gives you an avenue to have those spiritual conversations with your spouse. Maybe you're saying, well, I don't know how to do what we do with our men's group with my spouse, my wife.
Right.
Well, this is going to help you learn that muscle memory,
Right.
It's going to help you build that ability to have those conversations together. And so I think it will strengthen our families. So maybe if you're in a men's group and your wife's in a women's group, maybe you talk to both of those groups and say, hey, do we want to be one family community group? Why don't we all get together and do families?
Yeah.
That's a win.
It's huge. It's huge. I think there was a study, a while back, asking ministers, how many of you do dedicated biblical study or prayer time with your spouse? And this is ministers. This is not the average person in the church. This is ministers. And I think the number was like 20% or less.
Throwing shade at me. Mm.
You know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah,
but
that's...
Yeah. And I'm guilty of that too sometimes. Like Rhea and I have our seasons where we do that, but we have seasons where we don't.
Yeah.
And what's great about these community groups is you are having dedicated time where you're studying, where you're learning, you're growing, you're building community with people, you're having godly conversation, and your family's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it numerous times on this podcast. Your kids need to see that. Mm-hmm. They desperately need to see that. Now, I do want to say something too, because there's some people listening that's going, listen, I'm an empty nester. I don't have kids. Why is this for me? Well, it's been proven that the older we get, the smaller our circle of friends gets. Mm-hmm. The older we get, the fewer friends we have. And it's
that's
very
dangerous
easy.
because I'm not that old. I'm already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, but these community groups aren't necessarily age defined.
Yeah.
I will tell you, one of the most amazing things I ever saw was a 27-year-old girl came up to me at Catalyst, and she said, I'm in a group of 20-somethings, and she goes, it's great, but she goes, can I get in a group with older people? Mm-hmm. And I asked her, I said, so why would you want this? She goes, I need to learn from people. Mm-hmm. I need wisdom. And she goes, I love these guys, but we're not wise. Yeah. We're figuring things out. We don't know everything, and we need people to pour into us as much as we need to just learn. And she went to a group of people that were all on average 20 years or more older than her. Mm-hmm. And she's still in that group. She loves that group. They love her. They think the world of her. Yeah. And it's just there's an awesome dynamic when people who've been there, done that, can pour into people who are going through it. Yeah. And that's valuable in these groups as well.
Yeah, it's almost as if the Bible says, which it does. Older women pour into younger women, older men into younger men.
Yeah.
And so, it's not just my peers and my own thinking. And here's the other part is, maybe you're an empty nester and you don't have kids at the house. Or maybe you don't have grandkids in the area. Mm-hmm. The blessing you can be by being a surrogate grandmother or grandfather.
Right.
Not only to the grandkids, but also to the parents, you can be such a model and a life shaper still. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the potential of this here at Leesburg. We are growing like crazy. Mm-hmm. We have been growing like crazy. Our down Sundays in the summer are higher than our average for last year. Yeah. I don't know if people realize the amount of growth we've seen just in the last 6 or 8 months, but it's awesome. Mm-hmm. But as we grow bigger and bigger, it's going to be easier and easier to get lost on a Sunday morning. People say they don't want to be numbers, but the easiest way to become a number at church is just show up on Sunday. Yeah. Because you're missing out on so much more. Yeah. It can be so much bigger and better. The other thing that I love about community groups is it does simplify church a little bit. It takes away the need for give me programs. Yeah. And it creates ministry opportunities. It creates community. It creates one of the things that I think is really cool is if we see beyond the group just being we meet together and we see it as the vision of the church being poured out in this group. Yeah. So as a church, we believe that people need to come in, but we also believe people need to serve. Mm-hmm. And we also believe there's a global mission to the church. And so one of the things that our group did was we gave care packages to one of the missionaries from our church. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of poured into her. This was one of the groups that I was in because we were super close with a lady named Laura Baxter who's in Honduras. And we would send her stuff from our group, which was a huge encouragement for her. Yeah. But it also helped our group understand that we're not just about this weekly meeting. Yeah. It's so much bigger and it's so much better than just that.
Well, let me ask you, John, as we approach this season, this fall, what should I be looking for to be involved in a community group, or what should I expect? What should I look for?
Well, groups are going to kick off after our kickoff week, second Sunday of September. Mm-hmm. So they'll be kicking off that entire week, whatever nights they're going to be meeting on. That stuff is all being figured out right now. We have a few groups already lined up, people that have said they want to lead, and I'll be meeting with those people here in the next few weeks, talking through the specifics of what we're doing. We're going to start sign-ups in August. So we will actually, if you're interested in signing up for a small group or a community group, you can do that on the app, or we'll also have paper for those who aren't internet savvy. Mm-hmm. Because we have several people in this church that don't like the internet very much. Yeah, I don't really blame them. But we do have that option as well. And then what we're going to try and do is we're just going to try and pair people up with the right groups. Mm-hmm. Do ask for patience, as this is the first time we've done this as a church. So it is going to be a little... Not bad, but it is definitely going to have its bumps along the way, and we're going to kind of figure things out as we go. But one thing that you can do is just constantly be looking out. We're going to be posting stuff on social media. There's going to be a video comes out this week just giving a basic overview. This is what community groups are, and we want you to be part of it. Another thing that I want to offer to people, you see a stack of books here. This is a book called Sticky Church by Larry Osborne. And this is basically I would say this is the framework for why I believe community groups should be done the way we're doing them. It's the idea that what we do on Sunday needs to stick throughout the week. And the reason I have these here is because anybody who's interested in potentially hosting or facilitating, and what I mean by that is you have a home and you want to open it up for people to come have a group there, or you want to be the facilitator. Maybe you don't have a home, but you're willing to go and lead the discussion times and help do that. And I'm not asking for teachers.
Right.
I'm not asking for people to be teachers. I'm asking for people to take a group of discussion questions and be the one who's willing to kind of lead a discussion. If you're interested in either of those things or both, these are free. These, ask me and I will give these books to you, is
Perfect.
basically what it is. Because I want people to understand this isn't some like harebrained scheme that I just came up with out of the blue. This is something that I've actually been working with for the greater part of a decade now. And I'm excited about what this is going to do in the lives of the people in this church. One other offshoot of this before we kind of wrap things up is discipleship. You're going to find in your group there are going to be people that are leaders naturally. And those people are going to take other people in the group under their wing. And they're going to pour into them.
Yeah.
This is a natural offshoot of these community groups. If you're someone who desperately needs to be discipled, community groups are probably going to be very valuable in that. And maybe it's something where you just need people to help you understand how to be. And that's a weird way to phrase that, but how to be a dad, how to be a husband, how to be a man in the church, how to be a woman in the church, how to be a mother, a grandmother. You know, these community groups have so much value to them. Yeah. This isn't something you're going to go to and you're just going to be like, well, that was a waste of my time.
Right. Yeah.
They're so much bigger. They're so much better than that. And I can't encourage people enough to be a part of this as we kick these off in the fall.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it's my hope. When I came, you and I talked about this. I guess it was last September. We talked, and I said, I would love if we get 5 or 6 groups. John, I already have 5 or 6 people that are willing to lead groups now.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I would love to see 10, 15, 20 groups in this church of people who really want to be part of this vision of church not just being a Sunday attendance thing, but being life.
Yeah.
We are the church. We live the church.
Yeah.
And when we can live that in each other, in community, it's amazing what God can do.
Yeah. Amen. That's wonderful. I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to be a part of one. And, I've told you, I want to be a part of one. I don't want to lead it. I don't want to facilitate it. I want to be a part of it. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
That will be. That will be. I just can't wait. I can't wait, John. We just bought a new house, and we've talked about this before. I bought the house with a community group in mind. I know it's a weird way to think, but my wife and I, we love having people over. It is like it breathes life into us. Yeah. And when we can have people at our house to enjoy our home with us, it's everything. We bought a house with a big patio for a reason. Yeah. It has a patio and a fire pit.
There you go.
That's the whole reason. Yeah. Is a community group. We want to have our family around that fire, sitting and talking about life and discussing and growing together. It's amazing when you've been a part of it, how much it transforms who you are and how you think. Yeah. So I can't encourage people enough to be part of this. Yeah, can't encourage them enough. So with all that said, thank you guys for tuning in. We've got some really cool stuff coming up this fall. Some big announcements are coming up next month, just about some really cool things with the direction of the church.
Community groups launching this coming Sunday. Mr. John Kelley is going to be preaching the word. Yeah. So make sure to come for that.
If you're going to sleep in, that's a good Sunday to do that. There's a lot of really good stuff happening, and we can't wait for you all to be a part of it. Again, if you want a copy of this book, you can get a hold of me. If you want to email me, my email is jkelley, and that's Kelley at leesburg.cc, and I will definitely get with you. Make sure you have one of these books, and if you want to ask me any questions about community groups, give me a shout. I would love to talk to you about it. And with all that said, John, it's been a good one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.